What does UCF do if they miss on Jamie Chadwell?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. Andrew, you and I, man, we've been together through this UCF journey together. Now we've got a coaching search, and we talked about it yesterday. Jamie Chadwell seems to be the front runner for this job, but I want to talk to you today about what happens if they don't get Jamie Chadwell.
Well, I mean, here's the truth. Until you got him, you don't. And life goes on. National Signing Day is tomorrow. And, you haven't heard anything from Terry Mohajir, the athletic director. But we have seen players post on social media that many of them are still intending on signing with UCF. It's not going to be a large class, at least not in December. They may pick a few more up in February, but the truth is this is not going to be a large freshman class. They're going to have to hit the portal hard. This has actually become very common with coaching changes. This window is open so early that new staffs aren't even really in place by the time you have, that first signing day.
Right.
So it's just a jumbled mess at the moment. You're trying to make the best of it, but this is where the portal in comes in handy because there are a lot of players that are keeping an eye on the landscape and the changing in coaching. I expect some more, coaches to be let go, maybe after bowl season or jump ship to another job. So this silly season of coaching changes is just getting started.
Andrew, look, I want to talk about Gus's exit for a second. And look, this may be an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people, but it feels like in some ways Gus did them a favor with the buyout and taking another job and saving UCF some money, which I think was the right thing to do. I think maybe he's made enough money in his career. I've talked to people close to Gus, and they said, what you said, he was unhappy. He was just not happy at UCF, and he wanted to get to a place in life where he was doing what he wanted to do. But does the timing of this leave UCF in a lurch? More and more we're seeing if schools are going to fire coaches or coaches are going to step down, they're doing it before the end of the season so that those schools have a chance to put feelers out there and try to get a coach in place before signing day.
Well, absolutely. He did UCF a favor by far. In fact, they talked about the school and him. And if you look at the letter of the contract, he was supposed to pay a $6 million buyout if he left.
Yeah.
Him and UCF worked it out where no money's changing hands. They had, he leaves amicably, and everyone just wipes their hands clean. And I think the timing of it, Gus did them a huge favor. He didn't have to leave. He could have stuck it out for another year. But as you said, he wasn't happy. And this is a way for all parties to try to make themselves as whole as possible. Gus gets to go do what he wants to do. He wants to call plays. He wants to run an offense. He's tired of the business BS that the NIL landscape has created for head coaches. I don't blame him for stepping away from being a head coach. I don't blame Chip Kelly. And I certainly don't blame guys like Nick Saban for walking away because they don't want to deal with a lot of this stuff too. He's come out and said that he doesn't like the way the landscape has changed. There's others that have similar sentiments. I don't blame any one of them. It's not the same industry in which they started in. It's changed a lot, and it's not for everybody. So the fact that he's now going to do what he wants, he left as early as possible, really, so that UCF can go do what they need to do to rebuild a new staff and move forward. And he sent a very, a nice message on social media this afternoon, basically, saying, so long and thanks for all the fish. But I mean, as we know, Gus is a good guy. There was never any malicious intent the way things, broke down. It just didn't work out. And that happens. But I'm glad that everyone gets to move on.
Yeah. The timing, you mentioned Nick Saban, and what happened at Alabama was Nick let them secure their recruiting class, Andrew, and then he decided what he already knew, which was he was going to retire. And you know the rules. Once you make a coaching change, that portal reopens for those kids, I think, for 30 days, so they get a chance
Right.
To find another school if their coach leaves. And Alabama had a lot of guys exit the program because it was no longer Nick Saban's Alabama. They held a lot of that together. But I just wonder if or when Gus made up in his mind that he no longer wanted to do this. And if it were, 3 weeks before the end of the season, could UCF been left in a better position to find another coach and get that guy before signing day by him saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to finish out the season, but I'm going to step down and you guys can start your search for another coach.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was after the Florida game where things just really started looking really bad, that he decided, you know what, this isn't working, and start putting feelers out. Super agent Jimmy Sexton to the rescue. That guy,
man, holy crap.
He makes magic happen. and he put some feelers out. And when Florida State season, it was tanking early on, but when it finally kind of tipped over, and they were deciding, we need to make some changes. That was the perfect opportunity. He was able to make it happen. I would say within the last month is when things really started to come together, and probably the last two games or so is probably when Gus and Terry Mohajir started talking about this stuff. It doesn't seem like anyone was really surprised internally. There seemed to be no panic. They've been very quiet about things, but it sounds like they just based on what we haven't seen, that it's been pretty methodical. If it wasn't planned, you would have heard more about it because they'd be freaking out. It's
right.
Like no one's freaking out.
Well, I'll tell you, look, they've got work to do. We're going to talk about this after the break, but you got to hold recruiting together. And you mentioned it's not going to be a big class, but I do want to talk about the state of that class right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Game Time, Andrew. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite event very easy. Look, man, it's simple. You've got custom curation that makes it easy, whether it's sports, concerts, comedies, theater, whatever you want to go see. They've got all-in pricing, no fees at checkout. No extra fees at checkout. And that is my favorite part of all this: panoramic seat views and a low price ticket guarantee. Look, they have Game Time ticket coverage, so your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Recruiting is the lifeblood of college football, and you got to have recruits to win, and you got to hold on recruits if you're UCF. What I want to talk about what the health of this recruiting class is at this point in the juncture. Before we started recording, you mentioned that UCF seems to be holding on to those commitments.
A lot more than we anticipated. Early on, there was a number of guys who opened up their recruitment, which was expected, but surprisingly, a larger number than I anticipated are sticking out with their commitments. Have posted on social media saying that they intend to sign, tomorrow, and or we're recording Tuesday night, Wednesday. That would be today when this broadcasts. The fact that you have these guys who are signing on to the school and the program versus the coach, I actually want to see more. I like that. I want to see more of that. And that's always been a problem in college sports. Players sign for the coach. And as we know, coaching staff is very transient now. But I think part of what the saving grace on this is players. They don't like the way things are the next year. They can just hit the portal and go. They're not tied either. It used to be you sign on to a school, you're there for a few years and there's not much you can do. Now the move is actually pretty low risk. Honor the commitment. There's going to be opportunity because a lot of players have left. So you have a chance of learning a new system just like everybody else. And there's a chance that you can break into that 2 deep, roster and climb up the depth charts and make a splash as a freshman or even as, a redshirt freshman the following year. There's a lot of potential in sticking around for a program that's going to be redefining itself, especially one a power conference school, which is going to have more resources than, say, the Kent States of the world.
Yeah, look, UCF has 12 hard commits right now. The crown jewels of this class seem to be Tavon, Swint, and Tony Williams right now. Those are your 4-star recruits. Do you have an update on those guys and their commitments to the program?
Well, Swint has come out and said that he's sticking. He has posted. You have another number of guys like Malachi Boone, who's a 3-star. He's sticking around, and there's a couple others out there that have flat out said, "Hey, I'm not going anywhere," and that's got to be very relieving to fans because the way things are set up now with coaches getting leaving, getting fired or whatever, the end of November, early December, that really ruins your December signing class.
It does.
Which is where the bulk of your freshman class now comes from.
Andrew, you've talked a lot about the collective and the reorganization of the collective and what role. I want to talk about their role in all this. Are we seeing that the collective is having to shell out more money maybe to hold this recruiting class together, or are guys honoring their commitments as is?
That's a tough question because until there's transparency, there is no transparency. Those collectives are still external organizations until at least next year when the settlement from the House case can kick in. UCF has already come out and said that they're going to absorb the kingdom and bring it in-house. But for now, it's still external, so they don't have to report diddly poo.
Yes, diddly poo they will report as we know. Look, hopefully they don't hire a diddly poo for a head coach, but right after the break I want to talk about the percentage chance that we end up with Jamie Chadwell as coach. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Andrew, it's championship weekend, and basketball is on as well, too. So no matter what your sport is, if you want to get your bets in, please do it with our friends at FanDuel. You'll get $200 in guaranteed bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Chadwell. I mean, everybody who's anybody covers this thing seems to think that Jamie Chadwell is the guy. I gotta think that they're going to announce a coach before the end of the week. I just want to take your temperature really quickly. Are you still feeling confident that it's Jamie Chadwell? And what percentage would you put on your confidence rating?
Well, I feel pretty good about it. The funny thing is, this is not the first time it's happened at UCF where all signs point to one guy and it ends up being another guy. When Scott Frost was hired, everyone thought it was going to be Dino Babers. When there was another time where they thought Kevin Sumlin was going to be the guy, and it turned into Josh Heupel. I guess maybe it's a UCF thing where you just you're so warm on this one guy, and it turns out to be someone else. I'm still 80%. On the Chadwell train. I wonder if FanDuel has prop bets based on, who the next UCF head coach is going to be. Maybe get in on that one. But until we start seeing some sort of smoke signal, they've been so tight-lipped. My guess is they're working on securing the funding for the buyout because he only signed a 7-year contract with Liberty going into 2023 that pays around $4 million a year. So I believe the buyout somewhere in the $7 to $8 mil. It's not the contract isn't published because Liberty's a private university, they don't have to publish that stuff. But that was the scuttle that I picked up, just here and there, that was the range of the buyout. So UCF is probably going to have to get a short-term loan floated using future earnings as a result of the Big 12, that they'll get paid out at the end of the 25-26 academic year. That's when the first year is as a full share member of the Big 12. So they may be working on getting logistics in place before they announce anything. I know Colorado didn't do that. They made the agreement and they're like, you know what? We don't have this money. We'll figure it out later. And that's what they did. I don't think UCF's going to do that. They're too used to working on a bare bones budget. And so they're going to be a little more prudent on that. But, I still think there's pieces coming into place. Otherwise, I think you would have seen a little bit more implosion within the program. But I'm still 80% on the Chadwell wagon.
The more and more I learn about Jamie Chadwell, the more I like this hire for UCF. I think that he is the right guy. We'll see if they get him. But look, man, news is going to be coming. Signing day is tomorrow. We're going to be back at you guys with more. Last word to you, my friend. Tell people where they can find you.
You can catch me on Twitter /X/Blue Sky at StatBoyDrew. And you can catch my writings on Last Word on College Football, a part of the Last Word on Sports family.
That's it for another great episode of Locked On UCF. Thank you for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. For your second listen, go check out our friends over at Locked On Big 12. Our guy, Drake Toll, leads the conversation in conference realignment news and pulls no punches when it comes to talking about every team in the Big 12, including UCF. You can find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find us here on YouTube, again, on Locked On UCF.